This week on the Unamplified Podcast.
Hello, people. Welcome to another episode of the Unamplified Podcast. My name is Cynthia Mbamalu, your host, and with me today is our amazing co-host,
Andrea, and I am the dramatic one.
Oh yes, she brings the drama to set. And we have someone who's been with us before in season 1. This is your first episode in season 2. Ayo, the quiet one.
I'm very glad to be back for season 2. I'm excited to see what this season will bring.
Oh yes, good to have you back, Ayo, on the podcast. And we have a powerful guest. It was not easy to pull this guest to, ladies and gentlemen. And we have the fantastic, fabulous Faiza Muntaka. Faiza Muntaka is a partnership coordinator with Care International Nigeria. But I know you wear several hats. Good to have you on the podcast.
Thank you, Cynthia. So as Cynthia said, my name is Faiza Muntaka, and then I'm the partnership and advocacy coordinator. With Care International in Nigeria. Yes. I'm also an economist by profession, academic-wise. So I'm so happy and glad to be here and part of the discussion.
Yeah, thank you. We tried to bring you in season 1, but you travel a lot. You have a lot of work you keep doing. But I'm happy we're able to get you for season 2 because, ladies, it's an all-female panel today.
Yes.
We're discussing a very important issue. And I will say, hashtag no excuse, hashtag without fear. And we're going to be having questions around issues that affect everyone in a society, which is basically sexual and gender-based violence. And I say everyone because it's not just a women or girls issue, it's everyone's issue. Now, every year, the world marks 16 days of activism, beginning from the 25th of November, and it moves from November 25th to the 10th of December, which is the Human Rights Day. The idea is 16 days dedicated to speaking up, condemning, calling out, and calling for action against sexual and gender-based violence globally. In Nigeria, SGBV has remained a major challenge. I know we have the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act, which was passed in 2015 at the federal level. You know, it's a federal structure, so when such laws go and are passed at the national level, every state has to adopt it for it to be operative in the state. But 8 years after, Kano, my fantastic and fabulous Faiza. Why?
So I keep asking the same questions, but then you know that there are factors that hindered the adoption of this law. So I know it was even a battle to cascade this law down to the state level. It started at the national level, basically within the vicinity of Abuja. But then since this issue is not just limited in Abuja, I mean the issue of gender-based violence, this is a critical issue with high level of prevalence across all the states. So these states, especially in the northern part, you know, gender-based violence has different form. In it, we have the child marriage, which is prevalent in the north. We have the issue of female genital mutilation, which is prevalent both in the east, the south, and even the north. So why are these states were reluctant? Because there were states that were even reluctant to adopt. And we have these core states that refuse to even adopt. So the issue is cultural norms and also religious factors. You know, the child marriage, I'm from the north. I'm also a Muslim. They say by your first menstruation or the second menstruation should meet you at your husband's house. So that's the belief. They believe that, okay, this is a religious set, this is a cultural thing. By the time you are 18 or 20, you are not married, you are committing a grave sin. That's the belief. But this is not according to the scripture, because there is no scripture that has actually stated that by a certain age, a woman should get married. There are different issues regarding, for you to be decent, but there are no issues that stop you from. So these are kind of the stories that hinder the adoption of this law. And you know, we have critical stakeholders within the community. Yes. Even though when you say stakeholders, it's not just the government or the peer development. You have the traditional rulers. Yes. You have the religious leaders. if we can remember, there is the prominent emir that also fight for sustainable development goals. I know when I say this, you already know who I'm talking of.
Yeah.
And he is fighting against such acts, which the gender-based violence or the child marriage is among. And you can see how the religious leaders and even the traditional leaders, even though he's a traditional leader, came out to fight him that why should he say that? Why should he go against the religions? And this person I'm talking of, he's not just a religious, let me say a traditional ruler.
Yeah.
He's also well known of the religion. You know what the religion says and what the religions prohibit. So he's coming to challenge these norms and people are fighting him. In fact, the key or critical stakeholders within these states come out to fight him. Why should he say that?
So,
You can see already, you
Yeah.
can know that this is the reason that is
the
delaying the adoption.
You know, when you were talking, I was thinking around the challenges, and I think maybe that's why there's still this call for the 60 days of activism. And I want to bring my co-host in, and the amazing Ayo. And what's your thoughts around 16 days of activism? Do we need it, and why is it important?
Yeah, so I think the 16 days of activism is very important because it's like amplifying these issues and the consequences of these things going unchecked for so long.
Yeah.
And I feel like if even one person can see what things like this have impacted in people's lives,
Yes.
it might even change, even if it changes just one person's opinion and they start implementing changes in their families, in their lives, with people that they interact with, I feel like it can go a very long way. Yeah. So I think like this, bringing awareness and stuff is very important because it starts with one person, it starts with one country, one nation, and then it spreads. It spreads.
Yeah, no, very important. So that's the reason we need it. It creates more awareness. It keeps the issue in the front burner. Andrea?
Yeah, I would emphasize on continuous awareness because the issue is still going on. Every single year we're having 16 days of activism, and then the next year you see here an issue of gender-based violence, sexual violence, and all of that. And so we have to keep pushing at it. So hence the 16 days activism has to go on until the issue actually stops.
Yeah, so we were saying no excuse and without fear. Andrea, you had a question?
Yes, I was no excuse to what exactly?
So, no excuse that it means zero tolerance. Let me give you an instance because I like giving examples. It makes us to relate better. So, you know, when there's an issue of rape, you know, gender-based violence. Initially, when you hear gender-based violence, you'll be thinking, maybe it's rape because maybe that's the most popular one.
Yes.
But it goes beyond that. It's something that affects you let me not start economically. Something that it's an act of sexual violence, abuse through psychological effect, you know, something that has to do with physical assault and all that. So, for instance, the issue of intimate partner violence, which is a violence that comes from your intimate partner, your husband, or even your boyfriend or your fiancé, for instance. Someone maybe you cohabit with, someone you live in with in the household. So you see that this person or a woman is being raped by her husband or her boyfriend, and the person will come out and tell you, is she not my own? Is she not my property? She's my wife now. Wow. So what is there? You get it, right?
Do as you want with your property.
So I can go to her anytime I want. And even without her consent, I can go on and have any sexual act with her.
Well, you know, this thing you said,
no excuse,
Yeah, no excuse, because you know most times people believe that they can't be raped within marriage.
Yeah.
You know, and when we say marital rape, they say, what does that mean? But the thing is, consent is consent, right? If
all
you
levels.
force yourself on a woman, even if she's your girlfriend or your fiancé or your wife, it's still rape. And that's that was a very important one. Like no excuse to rape or abuse or sexual abuse by your intimate partner. Yeah.
Another excuse is or people give is you rape a girl or a woman and they'll tell you, oh, she's half dressed.
Yeah.
That's why I raped
just thought
her.
about that.
You know? So what this no excuse and zero tolerance is trying to say is there is no justification for any kind of gender-based violence. Whether it's child marriage, whether it's, no, you are saying, oh, this is our culture and it has been there for 100 years or thousands of years by our ancestors. There is no excuse. When you get someone in the act as an offender of gender-based violence, the person should be reprimanded or the person should be prosecuted or whatever word you want to use in the legal time. The person should be held accountable. So what it means is no zero tolerance, no excuse. Anyone found in charge or convicted as the offender or perpetrator of gender-based violence should be convicted.
So because when she was talking about it, I was thinking about other instances. And ladies, I know that there are several times people make excuses. You know, I can't remember, I was reading something and one lady was talking about her boss hitting a bomb at work, at her workplace, and then people were like, oh, that's him encouraging you.
Yes.
So I'm just thinking, what are those different kinds of forms of sexual and gender-based violence that most times we don't even talk about in our society, either in the workplace or in several spaces that we occupy.
So, for example, there's coercion. Most of people don't really talk about how it's not just about saying no. It's about, like when you've already said no or you've expressed that you don't want it, and then they keep like pressuring you or just saying things that they think will make you say yes, and then eventually you give in and say yes. That is still assault because you didn't want it at the beginning, but they pressured you into making yourself think that this is what you want. It's still abuse, it's still rape, basically.
Yes, actually. And then the incidents of people go out and they are drugged, or when someone is drunk. So if someone can't give consent, a minor, someone that is not in the right sense, someone that has any challenge, maybe mental health challenge at the point that cannot give consent, and you have your way with that person, that is rape. And that because consent is one of the things that is really key. Andrea, you had some thoughts.
So I feel like even verbally, should I say, blackmailing. There are certain people who like, because you're working with me in the office and you're dressed this way, if you don't give me what I want, I will not promote you. I will not.
Economic abuse.
Yes, is that happening in offices? It's happening in even creative industry where I work.
Oh yes.
So
creative industry.
And that's one of the reasons why even parents sometimes are scared when their female children want to say, "Oh, I want to be an actor." I want to be an actor. They feel like, "Oh, if you go into this industry, they will force you to do things you don't want to do." And so that's also a form.
So I don't know if I can add to this because all what they are saying now, putting it technically. There are different forms of gender-based violence. In fact, there are a lot that are not being brought to book. Let me start with giving the data. You see, I mentioned about intimate partner violence. Do you know that in Nigeria, we have around approximately 22% of women that have been violated by their husbands or intimate partners?
Wow.
Then this is just the one that is being reported.
Yes.
And as you all know, the one that is not even reported is
more than
higher
that.
than
the one
that.
reported.
So imagine if everything is reported. Imagine the prevalence. Then coming down to child marriage, because that is more obvious. So we have around 44% of child marriage
Still
in Nigeria.
happening
In Nigeria.
this age and time.
Yes, perhaps not everything that is captured. And then come down to female genital mutilation. When you hear... I've written something on female genital mutilation, and it's the most uncomfortable thing I have ever written in my life.
Wow.
Because
I can imagine.
if it's been described, I'm already having goosebumps. If it's been described, it's not something you can withstand reading.
Yeah.
A colleague said she was in Somalia. It's one of the places it's been prevalent. She said instead of her consoling the survivor, she's crying as she's doing it. So she has to resign because she can't, you're supposed to give them this level of encouragement, but you can't do it. So another form of gender-based violence, as I said, is human trafficking.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
That is still happening.
That is happening. I mean, it's a trending, I'm a social media person. It's a trending issue on social media right now that they say a particular state do even groom their girl child to be trafficked.
Wow.
It's not like they are not aware. They are very aware, and they prepare a girl child to be trafficked because of economic use. So that you can categorize it as human trafficking, you can categorize it as economic abuse. We also have the psychological abuse.
Yes, we don't talk much about psychological.
Yes.
Psychological is very popular nowadays because of this thing.
Phones, the social media.
Social media.
Yes.
There are a lot that is being unspoken of.
Yeah.
Stalking is gender-based violence. When one keeps stalking you, or even someone that asks you on a date and you said no on the first time, and he repeatedly keep asking you, manipulate you till you say yes.
Or even threaten you to say yes.
Sure.
There is one that is popular.
Which one?
Revenge porn.
Oh, yes, revenge porn.
You know, these days, I'm telling you, this stupid thing can delete someone. So someone will manipulate you, perhaps one, to send your nude pictures.
Yes.
And when things go south, they expose it. It's going to cause a lot of trauma, psychological effect.
Yes.
You won't even be comfortable.
In fact,
if you are working, for instance, you can't even go to the office, and that is affecting you productively.
Yeah,
you can't even engage in economic activities.
This particular one, because we don't talk about it. I know the one time there was a celebrity, one actor, she was talking about
a lot of
her
them
partner released a lot of her pictures. And I know conversation around slut shaming also happening online. And it's I think we need to talk a lot more about it, because a lot of some people don't talk about it.
Yes.
Their pictures are exposed, and I know someone who shut down her account because she just can't face the embarrassment and the shame, because you trusted someone, both of you, while you were intimate, may have shared some things, and then this person, based on trust, the person bridges your trust first, then exposes your picture, which is a violation of your privacy to the public, but then subjects you to both psychological and emotional
stigmatization.
A lot
People
of
lose
their livelihoods because of this.
So imagine that lady that closed down her account. Let's say she's an influencer, for instance.
Exactly.
And that is her means of getting income.
Yeah.
She now shut it down. She can't even go and look for work in another place. No. That is
because your picture is
breach
everywhere.
of a lot of things.
Yes.
This is abuse. This is anything you want to call it. It is. Because she can't even live a normal life again. And the interesting part is, in most of these gender-based violence, the offender even gets more power than the survivor.
True.
Ironically, it's supposed to be the other way around. But the offender will work comfortably in a society than the survivor, which often is a woman. So the woman is always at the receiving end of everything.
Yeah. And now I want to talk about stigma. Yeah. And I think we were having a conversation earlier around the stigma survivors of violence face, and maybe how we're not even talking about protecting each other. Yeah. Not just as women, as people in society, because women can't protect women alone. We need men and boys to be part of this conversation. Exactly. Because you have a mother, you have a sister, you have a friend, you have you are hoping to have a daughter. So every one of us has a female relationship in our life. So we need to think about. So do you have thoughts around issues around stigma when it comes to SGBV?
I would like to push this particularly to the boys who become victims of sexual-based violence. They don't get to come out to talk about it. Okay, yeah. You see, mostly we don't talk about young. Yeah, we don't talk about young boys a lot, and then most of them, especially when they grow older, it's more like, oh, I'm a man. How will I say a woman forced me to? So that's alone. They know that there's a stigma attached to them being men, and that ego will be bruised if they say, oh, a woman abused them, whether it's verbally, because some of these men too, they face verbal abuse in their homes. Their wives talk to them anyhow, but they can't come out to say these things because they feel like, oh, why would your wife be talking to you like that? Then when you go to sexual-based violence as well, even young boys, they can't come out because of stigma, and then women too, of course. So
yeah, and I think maybe we'll not talk much about young boys, because I really did another time, one time, and they said there are a lot of young boys that are victims of sexual and gender-based sexual violence that do not even have the courage to speak up about it. Yeah. And I think when it comes to stigma, I'm looking at it from the point of how the perpetrator gets to live okay. Yeah, in a way.
Go scot-free.
Go scot-free. And then you have a survivor who has to deal with all the burden. Because some people, there's one of the celebrities, and she mentioned in her book that when she was 18, she was raped, and she's in therapy. And a lot of times, most of them are in therapy for almost all your life, because there's a damage that happens that you just have to constantly keep healing.
It's
and
traumatic.
then I think we need to talk about it. I remember one time, Ayo, you were sharing about this trending topic online, and I said I wanted to hear your thoughts around it.
Yeah. So like recently, I've been seeing that misogyny has been trending on X, Twitter.
Yes, on X,
X.
formerly called Twitter.
Yeah.
It's
So, and I feel a lot of people were saying that like, so I saw one particular tweet.
Yeah.
Is it still called a tweet now that
Just
it's
a
X?
tweet. We know what
think
it is. Don't mind the law.
I saw a particular tweet,
Yeah.
and then somebody was like, that if we keep focusing on all the bad things about men, that we will never be happy, that we should start thinking about the positive things so we can be able to drop the feminist title from our names.
Wow.
And I was just like, what? Because I don't understand how that makes sense. Thing is that misogyny is ingrained in the Nigerian society, most African societies. And people feel like when you say someone is misogynistic, you're saying they hate women. That's not necessarily what they are saying. Misogyny doesn't really have to do with hating women. It's about regulating women's behavior in a way that, like, so if you see that there's a particular woman that is going against the patriarchy or doing something that makes her stand out, then you start to regulate her behavior, what she's doing and everything, to bring her back down. So, for example, it's everywhere. It's not just in men. Women to have it too, and they don't know when they are saying these things.
Yeah.
Like when a mother says, "Oh, he's a boy. He's just being a boy." Like, no, correct your son.
Or you're a woman, you should know your place.
Yeah.
Yes. Correct your
Exactly.
son.
That's
I like
the-
that.
The double standards are also there. Like, I don't know if you guys have heard this thing that they said that if a man cheats on his girlfriend or his wife, that he's just cheating, but he still loves her. But if a woman cheats, that means that she
she no
has
longer
gone
loves
out of love and she doesn't love you anymore. You need to
that's so
leave
wrong.
Oh
her.
my God.
double
Cheating-
standards.
First of all, cheating
It's so
wrong.
itself is wrong.
Yeah, unless you have an open relationship.
Yes.
But then the double standard that your husband or your boyfriend can cheat on you and then you take him back
Yeah.
because he still loves you, but your wife, if she cheats on you, that means
You
that
can't
she's
take her
done
back.
with you. Her love for you has depleted or
Or
something.
you judge her harshly, because they
Yeah.
judge women a lot more
Oh,
worse
Lord.
than they judge a guy. Yeah.
Yeah, like when you were saying about how the woman that if you are a woman and then someone releases your nudes or something and then you can't go to work, or sometimes they fire you. I'm like, why are you firing the victim?
Yes.
Yes.
You should place the blame where the blame is due. Do you
Yeah.
understand? Like, misogyny is just everywhere in our society. It's even in, like, if you are driving now and then someone does something wrong on the road, the first thing that comes to most people's head is, oh, it's probably a woman that is driving the car.
Exactly.
Something like
Exactly.
that.
Always.
Yes.
Always.
It's just everywhere, and I feel like it's important now that it's trending on Twitter. It's good that young people are beginning to talk about it, because I feel like sometimes people just ignore it. Like they say, misogyny, the first thing that women think about is misogyny. That misogyny is becoming the most used word on Twitter, and I'm like, yes, it should be the most used word
That's
on
how we
Twitter.
create awareness.
Let's talk
Enlightenment.
about
Yeah, that's
it.
how we create
Exactly, and
enlightenment.
awareness.
Because honestly, one of the ways to change societal behaviors is by creating awareness around it and talking about it constantly.
Constantly,
yes.
Because when we start saying this is bad, we don't like it, we don't appreciate it, that is how we start building consciousness.
Yes.
And most times, some of us don't even know. Even as women, sometimes we don't even know subconsciously.
Yeah.
Because of our socialization, the way
Yes.
we've been brought up. But sometimes you see a fellow woman doing something, you're like, oh, the first thing you think about is judgmental or undermining. But when you sit back and reflect, for me, these conversations, they are good because it helps us reflect, to think about, okay, where am I missing it? How can I correct it?
Yeah.
How can I be better? And I think for men, they need to be open-minded.
Yes.
That you've been doing something a particular way for ages, for hundreds of years, doesn't mean it's the right way.
Yeah.
Because you're not the one who is at the receiving end. When you're at the receiving end, then you understand that, this thing doesn't feel so good. When you talked about people being fired for their news released online, or people being called out or abused, sometimes they say, oh, why did you share your news with the person?
Yes.
Kick you out of school.
The
Or
blame,
they kick you out of
shaming.
school. In fact, there was a time that when you get pregnant, young girls said the teenagers were kicked out of school for getting pregnant.
Yes.
It takes two to create a baby.
Yes.
There was
The
a man
boy.
that got her pregnant. Most times the boy
then
is
the
still in
boy
the
would-
school.
oh.
He's not
You
suspended.
even graduate.
The
He'll
mother, the
succeed.
parents,
Let's
see
put
girls
it that way.
that are brought out of school because they got pregnant, and nobody's asking who got her pregnant. Some of them were even abused. Some of them, it was not like I had a boyfriend and I got pregnant. It's someone abused me. And I think this whole idea of 16 days of activism is that we are creating awareness around all of these issues.
Yes, it's not just around the issue of continuous enlightenment, as she said.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to give an example with what we face on the field. A particular state, I think Yobe State, one of the communities. So we had an interview with one of our participants, and she was mentioning how enlightenment was able to help her one challenge child marriage and also female genital mutilation.
Wow.
She said her whole idea is about if her child finished the secondary school at least, quickly get her married because she don't want that stigmatization within the community. And she said female genital mutilation is normal because they don't want the girl to grow up and engage in indecent activities. So that's the reason. So, with the project that was taken there by our organization, she was able to understand that this is wrong and this is a gender-based violence. And it has a level of punishment when you go into the... So she was able to stop it and even stop other women. So she said immediately she heard there's a childbirth within a community, she quickly go there. Even if it's her family or her non-family, just someone within the community, she go there and tell them, hey, don't do it because these are the health hazards associated with it. These are the implications and blah, blah, blah. So with this, she was able to reduce the prevalence within that community.
And this brings my next question because it's about what can we do to support the fight against SGBV in Nigeria and Africa as citizens that live within the country and within the continent. Because you're talking about the unconventional powers that exist now. When you educate one woman, it has the potential to move to the next woman and to move to the community. But not just one woman. When you educate one man, like I said, I believe that SGBV needs men and women to be on that. So what can we do to support the fight against SGBV? And I want to start with Andrea.
Okay. For me, it starts from your immediate community, because it's already in research that 1 out of 3 women face sexual violence or gender-based violence, and so we may not be aware by just associating with them on a lighter level. But if you have a neighbor, for instance, who is going through some sort of traumatic events, and you're noticing these signs, they come out little by little. So like you can't just ignore. For example, I had a neighbor back in Benue State where I grew up, and she was a very lively woman. Every time she had a shop, every time you go there, you to buy stuff from her. She was very lively. She was very. All of a sudden, she became very withdrawn. And most people just thought maybe she's just having mood swings or something like that. But a lot of people did not know that she did not have any children at that time. But a lot of people do not know that she actually lost about 2 pregnancies because her husband was always beating her up. And there was nobody that was actually there to talk to her there was nobody she could run to. I personally I didn't know how to go about it. And then later on, she had to leave. She left the marriage, she ran away. We didn't hear from her again. So that type of thing now is very easy for us to see it and say, it's just one of those things that happens in marriage. A lot of people in the community, they just ignore these things. They're like, it's not my business. Let me just go on with my life. This happened to her. Oh, she has gone. At least she survived. But some people will not survive. They die.
I wanted to add something that she said, sometimes you lose your life. And then change in behavior. So it's sometimes an indication that something is happening. So I was at an event and a mother of survivor was there to share a story. That child was in a boarding school, a very lively, chatty, social child. and she was raped by her teacher here in Abuja.
Oh, no.
Live. She was raped by her teacher, and then she went to the clinic, she complained, and they told her no, she shouldn't say it.
Wow.
Yes. I mean, so they brought her home. She couldn't raise that issue to her mom, but the mom noticed the behavior in her. Even though she's sick, she shouldn't act that way. She don't want anyone to come close to her. She stays upstairs, she enclosed herself and all that. The mother felt, the mother instinct. She felt something is wrong.
Yeah.
And she kept using different means and mechanism to get the girl close to her because she know the kind of person she is. And she said she don't want to go back to school. This is the person that begged her to go to that school.
Yeah.
In fact, she changed her school. She was in a day school. She changed from that school and went because she liked that school. And she said she don't want to go back to school. Why? You were the one that said you want to get here and you are just in SS1.
So why?
So this is like
yeah.
She kept pestering and she took her to the hospital. Her body, her health became worse. And she took her to the hospital. So she spent days. And then after the forensic test and all that, the doctor was saying she was raped. That she was raped, and it has happened for days. Nobody knew. She wasn't taken to the hospital.
Yes.
All those things. And that before you know it, the girl is gone.
This is such a sad story because this happens.
Yes.
This is one out of many. When you say the data is 1 in every 3 women, the truth is 1, 2, 3.
Us,
One
yes.
One of us.
Over. It's even over
sexual and
1.
gender
So
based
maybe
violence
2 of
as
us.
a kid, as
Yes.
a teenager, even as an adult.
Yes.
And in my space of work, in the church. So it's not limited.
Yeah, it's not
Yes, it's not limited.
With supposed close friends in primary school, so if we say 1 in 3, it's actually 1 in 3, and that's how horrible it is.
We're
and
always working with fear.
We're always working with
Whether
fear.
in our home,
Yes.
church,
Sometimes at night you want
mosque.
to go somewhere, you start to think.
You can't trust anybody.
Anybody. Still places you go to, you'll be colonizing
Yes.
yourself. So the fact that we have to consciously be on the alert is a problem for women and girls.
Every time I go to parties, I can't leave my drink open like this.
That is
I have to
fair.
just hold it and close it.
We can't
or
even
if I have to
relate
go to the
with people,
restroom,
fair.
and I come back, I'm not drinking it
Drinking
again.
it.
Because you don't
Yes.
know who has spiked your drink.
Yes. How else can we contribute to the fight against SGBV?
They said change starts with me.
With me, yes.
You are the first contact of making any form of change. And you don't know that one step can have a lot of ripple effects, 1,000 ripple effects within the community, within the home. So one thing, even if you are a woman and you are busy, make sure that you don't leave your girl child with anybody. But then it's so unfortunate. How can you say you can't trust your child with her own father?
Yeah.
Forget about relatives. But there are a lot of issues of parents or father assaulting their own child. How can you prevent this? But for it, anyway, that's maybe a critical case. But to make any form of preventing, to fight for it, it starts from yourself before you even go to partners or stakeholders or the government. Make sure that whoever you are leaving your child with is the most trusted person. But can you even trust anyone? Then also
You're scared. You say the most
educate.
trusted person. They say, "What
Can you even
Exactly.
trust anyone? Enlighten your own children before you even enlighten people outside.
Especially about
This
speaking up.
Speaking up, sex education.
Sex education,
These are
yes.
your private part. Don't allow anybody touch it. No, there are form of touch that that it's a sexual touch. All these things. There is no more shyness like the older parents who teach your child everything.
I wanted to bring Ayo because I know that for younger people, you're more vocal now. Like when you talked about what is even trending online, you see a lot of young women, especially the Gen Zs. Everyone they call. Is it the coconut head generation? They challenge everything. They're challenging the status quo. And I want to get your thoughts. How can younger people support the fight against SGBV?
So I think the main thing now is just restructuring the way people think. So we need to start having more. We're already having the conversations, but we need to have it more amplified.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, when you're say it.
More amplified.
Yeah.
So you need to even just talking to our parents or even our siblings at home. Like we need to stop the way some parents say things to their children, especially their girl children. Like some people grow up believing that their whole life is meant for them to get married and have children. Like if you don't get married and have children, then that's your life is finished, everything.
Yes.
Even sometimes when they talk about it in church, like when they say, oh,
Yes.
this woman is not married, everybody's shouting, God forbid, God forbid.
Yes.
And it's like, why are you saying that? Because now if that person ends up getting married now and their husband starts abusing them, they'll be
don't
scared
want
to
to
leave
leave
or scared to
because
say
they
anything
want
because
to miss the
people have
title
already
misses.
exactly because people have already insulted them all their life for not having
Yes.
a husband and children
You're right.
and things like that. So we need to change the way we think, change the way we are training the younger generation, even just Gen Zs now in our houses. If you have any neighbor that is young, a young child, even if your siblings or anything, just try and talk to them, change their mindset, because this new generation, alpha, these people that are coming up now, they need to come up with a different mindset.
Yes,
That's
so
just
definitely, like you said, it's about the kinds of education, what we see, how we educate people, even how we correct. I believe in correcting people with love, because like sometimes I feel like some people may not know that certain things. I mean, some of them might not make excuses for that, but like for the younger ones, especially this Gen Z, I have a younger brother. He's 18 years old, and I listened to his conversation. I see his one time he posted something on his status. I felt the comments. It was a chat amongst people, and I felt the comment was a bit derogatory to young women, to his friends, you know. But to him, it was just vibing. And I had to send me a WhatsApp chat. Take that down. And I don't think it's good. Let me explain why. And later it was like, oh, I didn't even think of it from that perspective.
Yeah. So
So that is also how we correct. We love. How else can we support the fight against SGBV? I'll look at you now from the government side. What can we do different? And then the response to SGBV is still not so good in Nigeria. How else can we address this?
My major point, apart from the VAP Act, is the first and foremost thing to do is investment in our judiciary system.
Oh yes, we need cases
One-
to be dealt with fast.
yeah.
In terms of the
And
VAP
fairly.
Act,
Yes.
is to strengthen that policy. It's a policy, it's an act, or it's an act. Strengthen it, then strengthen the institution that holds the VAP Act. You have to make some investments. One, if you get any offender, that offender should be punished according to the law.
Yeah.
And also, when you get the survivor also should be compensated. You know, this revenge porn, when a person knows what the law says about it, he can report it, and then that person that released
release the
whatsoever
picture,
it is
yes.
will be held accountable.
Yes, you'll be punished and you pay damage.
Enforcing the law
Yes.
and,
Yeah.
you know,
I-
implementing it
implementing
accordingly.
it.
Nobody.
I think actually
Would
effective implementation of our laws.
Yes.
We have a VAP Act. We have VAP
Yes.
laws across the state.
Yes.
What we need is an effective criminal justice system from the point of investigation to prosecution and everything. We need the courts to work, but we need the police. We have the gender unit in the police.
Yes.
We have the National Agency for Prohibition Against Trafficking in Person, NAPTIP. Now,
NAPTIP,
VAP
yes.
Act actually gives NAPTIP the power as the implementing agency. And so we need better investment to build the capacity of NAPTIP, both financial and technical capacity, because they need the monies to do the
Yeah,
work.
they do.
So better budgeting to NAPTIP, but also support to the gender unit in police. Let people, you know, sometimes you go to make reports to the police and they will make a ridicule of what
Yeah,
is
what
really-
yes.
We need that attitude to change. So better investment in even the gender unit and the
Yes.
police. Who are those who receive these reports so that they can treat the survivor like a true survivor and not make them more victimize them and then effectively address those issues. But I think we all made an important point about everything we need to do, because we're running up the conversation.
Okay.
Is that the fight against SGBV is a continuous fight. It's a continuous days of
Days
activism,
of activism,
against sexual and
exactly.
gender-based violence. Because the truth is, you talked about the economic cost.
Yes.
So we should also look at it from an economic point of view, that if we eliminate gender-based violence, violence against women and girls, we are also supporting development that benefits every one
Everybody.
of us.
Within the
Ladies,
community. Yes.
It's been an interesting conversation. We're going to bring you back again, Pfizer. Get
Okay.
ready, because we're going to, violence against women is broad, and
It's
I'm hoping
broad.
we'll have a conversation
It's
around
broad.
violence against women in politics
Yes.
at the national, state, and local
Yeah,
level.
that'll be very interesting.
Yes.
Yes. But to our audience, you know what we say, ladies. To our audience and our listeners, thank you for
Thank you.
being part of the conversation today. See, Pfizer is telling you thank you.
Thank
our
you, thank
super
you.
guest. Thank you so much, Pfizer. She's an
Thank you,
economist,
Cynthia.
she's a development expert. She works with Care International in Nigeria. If you don't know about Care International, Google it. And what we say to our audience and our listeners?
Yeah, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to follow us on all our social medias, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Yeah.
And make sure you share, of course, and leave us your comments. We'd love to hear from you.
Like Andrea said about dropping our comments, make sure you let us know how you are contributing to the fight against sexual and gender-based violence in Nigeria and in Africa. And to our crew behind the scenes, we say thank you. Shout out to our crew behind the scenes.
Shout out to our director, Hamilton.
Yes.
Shout out to DJ Drexx, our producer.
Yes.
Shout out to Austin.
Yes, so.
Shout out to Coca, Cinematographer.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
Shout out to Ifeanyi Mkpume. And we have some of Folorusho, Stevie Momoh. Shout out to Queen CY. We have Austin. Shout out to Austin. And the cool one, Chi, the cool one. Ayo, it's always good to have you on this podcast. And I'm bringing you back. We'll get ready. She's the quiet one, doesn't like to talk. Exactly. But we'll bring her back. Faiza, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. And thank you to Unamplified Podcast team. Yeah. I really enjoyed this session. I mean, we can speak about this the whole day.
Honestly.
In fact, there are a lot of things I feel like, I haven't said that.
We're bringing you back. Don't worry.
But I mean, thank you, Cynthia, for discussing this critical topic.
Yes.
It's worth discussing, and it's something that, as you said, is a daily activism. It's something we should speak about daily, encourage others to speak up, and then amplify their voices, and also reduce stigmatization within the community. They are the survivors, they are the victims. The offenders should be held accountable, and the survivors should be helped to be better than they are.
Yes, and on that note, you know how we say it, ladies, when you're on,
you're amplified.
And we cheers to Africa.
Thank you.